Hey there, folks. Can everybody see and hear me? All right, so I did see your question, Sam. You don't have a monitor for the Pi. Do you need one? That is a good question. Today we are going to finish up working with this GPIO stuff. It actually has come to my attention that some of you have done this in lab already and some of you haven't. Question, do we have webinars next week? No, we do not, and I'll give you exact dates next time. Hey, don't worry, you're not late, no worries. We are going to finish up this GPIO stuff for the Raspberry Pi, specifically with Asteroids and Space Invaders. Due to the discrepancy in where everybody is in their labs, I know some people have done all this stuff already. I know some people haven't even touched this yet. As a result, this class is going to be a little bit shorter than usual. And if I'm going over something that you're familiar with, I'll give you alternative things to be doing during this webinar. Now, we do not have webinars next week. We do not have them on the 23rd or the 25th. Next week is Thanksgiving. So you won't have to worry about webinars, and you can hang out with your family and eat some delicious food or whatever you do on Thanksgiving. We will have webinars starting back up on Monday, November 30th, though. So short class today, no classes 23rd or 25th, but on the 30th, yes. Question, are we having Tuesday labs? I'm assuming not, but let me double check that. See, another thing, random thought, Donkey Kong, Arcade, and Scratch. That's definitely doable. And that'd be really cool to hook up GPIO as well. I would love to see that if that's possible. So question, you have the cords for your Pi, it won't do anything. Is there a software you have done to get it to work? No. You just have to make sure everything's plugged in correctly and that your SD card is in. Make sure the monitor you're plugging it into is on. Doesn't matter what order you plug them in, but you want to turn on the power last. Oh, so you're asking, you want to get it to work, but you only have one monitor. There's not really a good way to do that with just a single monitor. Again, this is one of those things I would just have pay attention during class, do it on your own when you get a chance to. I know that's not very easy to do, but it's the best thing I can say. So where we finished off last class was by making a little game with our cat to check if our joystick is indeed working or not. So we have to type in a whole bunch of stuff to do that. If you haven't already, go ahead, turn on your Pi open, Scratch. If you got this game ready, great. I'm going to just go over it real quick because you'll see very similar stuff through the next couple of things that we do. So obviously what we want to do first is to make sure our GPIO server is on, make sure that our program is broadcasting to the pins, hey, I want you guys to work. So we just broadcast GPIO server on. The next several broadcasts are just configuring your pins. All right, so can you stay on the coding for a bit? You had it, but you forgot to save it. Yeah, definitely. You'll be right back in with another solution. Okay, great. So we know how it goes, Evan. So remember, the pin numbers and their corresponding GPIO numbers are going to be different. So we type in config 5in to configure GPIO 5. That's GPIO 5. I think that's what, pin 29 that's connected to. So just remember when you do this to look up the appropriate GPIO numbers. So this bit of code is just for the joystick, not including the button. So if you wanted to add a button to your Scratch game, not too difficult to do. But I'll show you, I think actually the button pins are pins 18 and 20. If you want to plug in your button, that corresponds with GPIO 24. So when will we get the joystick hooked up? Do we not get that far? Do we not hook it up? And hang on, Andrew, I'm going to go back just for a second. You got the buttons, but you haven't gotten the joystick yet? That's weird. And that's one of those things. Everybody's at a different place in lab. You'll be getting your joystick at the next lab if you haven't gotten it already. If you do follow this code and hook up your joystick as I explained last class though, you can immediately plug it in and you're good to go. So I'd still write all this stuff even if you don't have a joystick yet. And do plug in your at least one button, if you do have the buttons already, into pin 18 and 20. So basically all this broadcast stuff is just configuring your GPIO pins to do stuff. Now in the little game that we've got here, we want to have all of our movements contained in a forever loop so that they will always work when the script is running. And we hook up each GPIO pin using an if statement. So if the GPIO 5, which is linked to the left input on your joystick, if that senses movement basically, it's going to move the cat or whatever sprite you've gotten -5 in the x-axis. GPIO 6, which corresponds to right, when it is sensed, meaning that in this case it senses a 0, meaning on, will change x by +5. And same thing with 13, which corresponds to the positive y direction, and same with 19, which corresponds with the down direction. So if I wanted to add a button, what would I broadcast? I have my button connected to pins 18 and 20, which are ground and GPIO 24. What would I broadcast if I wanted to add a button? Any ideas? config 5 in to configure GPIO 5 to be an input. GPIO 24 is our button. What would I type here? You would type in config 24 in. If I wanted something to happen when you push a button, say I wanted to play a sound, where would I put that code? Anybody have any ideas? Your code here isn't working? Just double check that you've gotten your spelling all correct. Even one typo will make something not work. You copied this code when you use the joystick, it's not working. Nothing is working, including your pi. Oh, also make sure that you go, oh, wait. You were the one that had the old version of Raspbian, right? Oh, that wasn't you? Oh. Did you go into edit and then start GPIO server? Okay. You figured it out? Good deal. You had the joystick on the wrong side. Yeah, that'll be an issue. So anyways, if you wanted to put, say, a sound to be played if a button is pressed, you'd basically just type in an if statement. If GPIO 24 sensor value is 0, play a sound. It's still not working? Did you make sure to initiate your GPIO server, going to edit and then turn on? So in the Scratch window, go to edit on the upper left, and then on the bottom, there should be should be something that says start GPIO server or turn on GPIO server. Make sure that you turn it on. Is it possible to add collision to sprites? Yeah, definitely. It just depends on what specifically you're trying to do. All right, yours says stop GPIO server. Okay, that means it's on then. Oh, are you doing the Donkey Kong thing? Because, yeah, what I would do if you want to add collision is if it's touching, then if it's touching another sprite, then something happens. That's what I would do. So let's think here. You double-checked all of your spelling is right, correct? You made sure to turn the server on in the broadcast? I'm not entirely sure. And it's hard to diagnose problems with your pies when I'm not there. When is your next lab? Because you should probably ask Mr. D about that if you don't figure out what's going on within the class time today. It would be this Tuesday, but there's Thanksgiving. So it's probably going to be the following Tuesday then. Okay. Yeah, if we don't get it to work today, then I'd bring it to him then. So, this is just a very basic game, and we're going to apply this knowledge to our Asteroids game. So this will be familiar if you've done it in lab already. If you haven't, what we're going to do is replace, well first actually, we're going to go into our Asteroids game and go to File and then Save As. You're going to save your Asteroids game with a different name so that you don't mess up the original. You made a wall in your Donkey Kong? Awesome. So you're going to go into your player sprite or your ship sprite, and you'll be replacing the key left arrow pressed with this GPIO 5 sensor value is equal to 0. You're just going to replace them. You're going to do the same thing for the right arrow. You're going to replace that with GPIO 6. And the same by replacing the up arrow with GPIO 13. So what about the down sensor? Which GPIO is that? 19. Where does GPIO 19 fit in this? Anybody have any ideas? We've got left coded, we've got right coded, we've got up coded. How do you change left arrow to GPIO? You will take out the entirety of key left arrow pressed and like throw it over in the corner. You'll go into operators and go find the equals or blank equals blank sign. And you'll go into sensing, and then to sensor value. So I actually also got ahead of myself, but I'll let you finish this up before I double back. Actually, no, I won't, because I don't think this will work if you don't do this. Alright, my apologies, guys. Sorry. It's not letting you make a new one, and that's my fault. I forgot to initialize all these pins It's not going to work yet because we forgot to add this. We forgot to turn our GPIO server on. We forgot to configure all of these guys as inputs. Otherwise, how's it going to know that it's supposed to do something? So make sure that you've got this in your code before we do that other piece of code. Sorry, that's my fault. So configuring. You're making Mario right now? Sweet. That's awesome. He's called Jumpman. Was he in the initial game called Jumpman? I don't think he was. Oh, I forgot. I thought you were talking about Mario. You're talking about Donkey Kong. And yeah, he is Jumpman in that one. So anyways, again, we're talking about 5, configuring a GPIO pin 5 as an input, which is left, 6, which is right, 13, which is up, and then 24, which is a button. What about 19? Why aren't we coding 19, which is down? Any ideas? It's because there's no down mechanism. We don't need to go down. We only have these 3 controls in the button. So we don't even need to worry about broadcasting 19 as an input. So question, it won't let you select GPIO 24. Run the game real quick and then stop it and see if it refreshes. Excellent. So I'm just going to let y'all take another look at this just to make sure that you got everything substituted in correctly. Hopefully it'll work once you give that a try. Also, I just noticed your name, Lauren. That's silly. So have y'all gotten the controls? Have you gotten it substituted, tried it out quite yet? Take the lack of questions as an okay to continue. So again, if you can't find the sensor value tab, oops, I do see a question. Your one still won't move. It's either your joystick hardware's messed up for some weird reason, or something's wired incorrectly. Did you make sure that your Raspberry Pi is, your pins are connected by looking at your Raspberry Pi like this? So remember, your SD card, which is right here, will be facing up. USB will be facing south. And from here on, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down to 40. You got it working, but it won't let you turn. Yeah, I'm not sure. Check everything's plugged in tight, maybe? It is? Yeah, that's weird. I'm wondering if it's something with your joystick. So what you just did, basically, was make it so your game can only be controlled with the joystick. But if you want, let's go forward. Well, that's something good at least. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. We'll need to actually take a look at it. But what we can do is add the OR operator from the operations tab and put it into our if statement so that it says if key left arrow is pressed or the sensor value is 0, then it will turn. So either of these inputs will let it turn. That might be good to add in. That way you can play it whether or not you have your joystick. So let's throw that button in there. The piece of firing code is right here. If you remember, it just checks to see if we're already firing and that you're not already hit, and most importantly, that your space bar has been pressed. It's not going to do anything until your space bar is pressed. So what we can do is also add another OR operator here. So what you need to do is take the key space pressed out of this if statement here. Just put it over the side, just like this GPIO 24 sensor value, which you will also need to create. In the hole where this was, you need to put an OR statement. Then you can put back in there, in this OR statement, key space pressed, or GPIO 24 sensor value equals 0. Oh, Mario had a big schnoz look at Jumpman. Yeah. Yeah. So once you get that piece of code in, you should be able to play the game entirely with joystick and button. It won't let you put in the sensor value. Notice that not only is there a sensor value, but that is contained within an operator, the equal operator. Is that what you're referring to? Or do you mean into the OR statement? You can't put it in. Okay. So if you got all this in and your joystick is working properly, this should work out for you. So let's keep in mind the process that we've used to get this far is making sure that our server has been turned on and our pins have been initialized as inputs. We then go into our code and find what controls the movement, and we replace it with GPIO sensor values being 0. So we can also apply this to both Space Invaders and to Pac-Man. Does anybody else need to see any of Asteroids before I move on to Space Invaders? I can always go back if anyone needs it to. So we're going to do the same concept we did there. Now it's not firing. Are you sure you've got everything hooked up correctly? All the everything's plugged in right? This is the main downfall of teaching online. I can't be there to check what's going on. Because this is not something on the computer where I can just look at your screen. I'd actually have to look really closely in real life to see what's going on. Gosh. I really hate that. I have no idea. I'm sorry, Andrew. I have no clue. I'm just going to suggest talking with Mr. D at your next lab. So if we're going to go into Space Invaders, I want you to do the same thing where you save the game as a different name so you don't ruin the initial version of it. And I want you to go into the player sprite underneath when I receive run game. For Space Invaders, there are only two inputs with your joystick, which are just left and right. Or, in the way we have it hooked up, GPIO 5 and GPIO 6. So we can replace the left and right arrows with this sensor value, GPIO 5 equals 0, and then GPIO 6 equals 0. But not before we make sure we broadcast everything. Make sure to broadcast, doesn't say in this code, but you should, broadcast GPIO server on, config 5 in, config 6 in, and config 24 in. So we got left, right, and button. basically what our goal is. Yeah, I'll say that again. We're making sure in our player sprite underneath when I receive run game that we configure pins 5, or it's not pins, sorry, GPIO 5, 6, and 24 as inputs. So 5 being left, 6 being right, 24 being button. Then just like before, we look for where our player is being controlled and replace the left arrow with GPIO 5 sensor value equals 0. We'll replace touching right arrow, or sorry, I did that wrong, didn't I? No, I think that's right, actually. Basically, sorry, we're just going to be doing the same thing that we did before. Replacing the touching with the sensor values. And similar to the fire option in Asteroids, we're going to change that with GPIO 24 equals 0. Now you're going to add in animation. Yeah, it's going to be fun. What pin does the button go in? It's going to go in pins 18 and 20. And it'll have GPIO number 24. And yes, that is something that was not included in this code. You do need to broadcast GPIO server on. So have you gotten this code added into this version of it? Excellent. If you feel comfortable, once you get this code in, you're comfortable enough to do the same thing with Pac-Man, you are free to work on doing that. I don't have anything else to lecture on today. So if you do want to work on Pac-Man over the next 10 or so minutes, I will be here. If you're just totally bored and want out, you are free to go for the day. Another reminder, we do not have class next week, the 23rd or the 25th. We will have our next webinar on the 30th, the Monday after Thanksgiving. And yeah, so you are more welcome to go, but I will be on for questions and stuff. I appreciate y'all coming out, and I hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving dinner and being with your family and such. Thank you. Appreciate it. Can you help you with running animation? Perhaps. I'd probably just do it via a ever-running costume change. Just make sure you set it for a while the game is running. So if game running is true, then costume change back and forth. Especially, or include that also. Sorry, I'm not talking English very well. You can't get it down? Trying to think, sorry. I know I would do it similar to what this looks like right here, but it's going to make the game really complex and trying to think of a good way to explain it. You can't see the screen? Oh. It's just the, okay, good. Yeah, I had no idea. That was weird. Sorry. So now I would do something like this. And probably have it constantly running between 4 different costumes. So if you're going left, it's going to be going one way. And constantly repeating the left costume, like left up and left down. And then for right, constantly doing right and right. Right up, right down. I'm just... one good source of inspiration that could help you out, if you go into the Scratch website, I'm sure other people have made similar games, and I'm not saying to copy it or anything, but I would suggest, playing it, seeing if you like that specific version, and going into the code and seeing what they did. Coding is really just a clever sort of using other people's work and making it your own. It's not plagiarizing, it's just taking inspiration. So that's probably what I would recommend doing. Just play a couple games, see how they do it. Because it's definitely going to be a repeat command. You found a way to do it? Sweet.